welcome to the 168th episode of the SAWDUST NATION podcast with your host, Josh from North Country Woodworking, a very, very sleepy Nap from Nap Snotty Works, LLC, and joining us yet again, the man, the myth, the legend, Daniel from PWNCNC. Man, we got a special treat for you today. If you haven't been seeing the old Facebooks and the social medias, Daniel's been killing it out there with himself and the amigos over there. He had some guests this weekend, but I'm not going to take that thunder from him. I'm going to let him talk all about the things he's got going on. So let's go and dive right on into it, Daniel, with all the happenings and all the things going on over there in Arkansas, or whatever you call it.
We hired someone new last week for my birthday, which was nice. I'm no longer the only person responsible for solving all the technical problems. I now have someone I can brainstorm with, which is really good. Of course, I brainstorm with you guys all the time too. So, you know, someone else who's incentivized to help out. So that's it. But
that's awesome, though.
Yes, team's growing. The engineering team, we now are 3 strong with Clint and I and our new guy. And of course, the manufacturing side of stuff is going very well with the teens. We've got 6 teens coming in regularly, although we've technically got 8 on the payroll. One's in college, so he hasn't had a chance to come by yet. He's getting acclimated to college, so that's kind of important. The other one's actually got an internship over here at a local trucking company, JB Hunt, if you haven't heard of it, in the IT department. So very smart guy. It's nice to, hopefully he'll be back. But if not, he's doing pretty well over there. But so we've got our engineering team, we've got our manufacturing team, and of course, all of it comes together to deliver products as fast as possible. And one of the great news is my wife has been working her butt off, and we are down to our oldest orders are less than 3 weeks old.
That's good.
Which means we are no longer in backlog. We are shipping spindle kits as fast as we possibly can do them. I think August 29th, I think, is one of the oldest spindle kits. So 1 to 3 weeks from any new orders, and you should have a spindle kit. We've got a steady stream of supplies coming in, so there's no shortage of stuff to come in to build motors the motors, the VFDs, the enclosure parts, all that stuff. We seem to be working out all of our manufacturing flaws. So there's a couple new things, and of course there's a couple. Now that I've solved some problems today, there are new solutions that I've come up with, but I can't share those yet. But a couple that I can share. So leading up to to Black Friday, we've got a major product coming. And I've been laying the groundwork for this since last Black Friday. Everything from filling our store with all of the proper ER collets, the accessories, the CNC accessories, the spindle accessories, all of these things are kind of laying the groundwork for this. A lot of what I researched and worked on and tested during the summer is actually starting to come together. One of them is actually this. If you can't tell, that is an aluminum panel. I have 500 of them sitting here in the shop right now. They just came in like yesterday or the day before. This means that our product increases in quality dramatically. No longer are we going to have the acrylic and the HDPE. We're now going to have aluminum and HDPE. So it'll be a nice, high-quality VFD enclosure. That VFD enclosure is also getting an upgrade. It's probably hard to tell, but this is a version 5. On the version 5, you will get a braking resistor. So that will help your spindle slow down faster. So right now we program the VFDs to have a 6-second stop. With a braking resistor, you can cut that in half. We also have an alarm output So if your VFD ever errors for whatever reason, you can have that output go right into, like a Masso or another controller that has the capabilities, and you can actually trigger the spindle error state in the controller. On the Masso, specifically how it works is if you trigger a spindle error, it will actually trigger the feed hold and then display the error on the screen. So it'll stop your machine, it'll freeze it in its tracks. And of course, if the VFD is ever in error state, it'll stop the motor for you. So let's see, the other really neat thing is, and it is really hard to show. I've got it on my machine back there, but right here, you see that our manual override switch right here, it now has 2 screws. It's removable.
Nice.
So not only can you remove the keypad, you can remove the manual override switch and have it all right there on your screen in an easily accessible location. All of that, well, and there's a couple more features I didn't mention, but all of that leads into the ultimate product that everybody wants. I've posted a teaser a couple weeks ago, and everything is falling into place, and I'm loving it. So it is an ATC, an auto tool changer. Now, we're going to be releasing a video probably tomorrow that describes the biggest benefit of such a setup. And the first one is, whenever you go to do a tool change, you have to grab your 2 wrenches, you grab your new bit, you do the thing, and if you're good at it, you could probably get it down to about 20 seconds or so. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 minutes. You can get it down to about 2 minutes.
That's like flying. We're talking like, where's the wrench? Crap, I dropped it, son of a...
2 minutes. So I call it the 2-minute 2-wrench process. So that's on our current spindle kits. On our new with an ATC, it's literally 0 seconds because you're not manually doing anything. And anybody out of the box, it'll work with anybody with a Masso controller. So if you wire it up into your Masso, the ATC appropriately into your Masso controller, you can have an all fully automatic tool changing. It'll have 4 tool holders by default. So it'll come with that, but you can expand that. I believe Masso supports up to 100 or 99 or something like that. It may be a little more. I haven't studied the thing. I don't know if 99 tools can actually fit onto one of those beds. But
no, if you're using 99 tools, what the hell was that? Me? It was. I'm so sorry.
How rude.
So I do want to point out that just because the ATC will work with Massos does not mean we're leaving everybody else out. I come from a Shipoko, so many of my machines, of course, I don't know why they don't love me more because I own every single one of their machines right now. I love every one of them. They're very nice. I do love the Onefinity because of that Masso controller. But if you don't have an ATC capable controller, there is an MTC capability. Now, if it takes 2 minutes to change a bit with the standard spindle, it takes 0 seconds to change a bit with your, it's technically about 30 seconds if you actually record it and watch it. To change it with the ATC, it takes about 45 seconds to change it with an MTC. Basically, you push the button and the tool drops. You put a new one in, you release the button, and that's your tool change.
That's pretty cool.
So, although most machines probably don't support ATCs, you can at least support an MTC and enjoy some of the many benefits. But that's probably the biggest. I'm sorry?
I'm hoping Onefinity drops the upgrade pathway for the Journeyman because they said they were going to do that. I guess when that happens, that's when I'll pull the trigger on other things. That kind of
now I got to make
mind.
a decision. do I completely change my controller to something and make it totally a PWNCNC, a hybrid of sorts? Or do I just keep the controller I have? And I don't know. There's so many options right now. Either way, something's going to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think an X-Carve, at least the older ones, even with the upgrade, I'm not sure it can actually support the weight of an ATC. Oh, I forgot to mention. So we've been working with our motor supplier, G-Penny, and they've agreed to they've basically redesigned their ATC motor. They had one, and I said, hey, I need this requirements. And they said, okay, we'll redesign it for you. So they started that in at the beginning of the year. And about a month ago, well, 2 months ago, they sent me the specs. Then they started pricing it out with their manufacturers. And here in about, probably about the end of the month, I am going to have 4 beautiful ATC motors. 2 of them will be 1.5 kilowatt 110, and 2 of them will be 2.2 kilowatt 220 motors. So anybody with our spindle kits, there is an upgrade path for you. And more on that over the next month or two.
We do have a question in the chat, though. Jason's asking, do you lose any cutting area with tool change?
So the tool change itself, technically, yes. The where you lose your bed size, basically, is what we're talking about, your capacity, your XY capacity. You're going to lose it based on where you're going to put your tools. Now, out of the box, we're probably going to have a static tool location. So it's basically going to be a couple of tool static places where you screw these things down, either down onto your bed or mount them in a special location so that you set the tools down onto them. Then we're going to have a simple little process which will tell you where the tools are. So the master knows exactly where to go to pick up that tool number, because every tool has to be numbered. So wherever you place those tool holders, those miniature tool racks, that is where you're losing your capacity. Now, we've been researching quite a bit on the best way to avoid losing too much. And I know tiling for larger projects is an important thing. So our recommendation right now is to run it either along the right side or the left side of the machine, right along the bars, either on the left or right side Y. That way, you're not losing your front and back capacity, so you can use tiling. You just pass a big piece right through the machine and still have that. What you're losing is some of your width capacity. So if you've got the 4 foot, it'll be like 4 foot minus 3 inches. So you're roughly losing about 3 inches of X capacity.
I mean, you guys definitely put some thought behind it. I mean, obviously you got to lose some in order for the tool change itself. But I know you might not have the metric on you, but like, do you lose 2 to 3 inches width? How much are you going to lose typically on average? Okay. So
roughly about 3 inches.
I mean, honestly, not bad at all for that capability. I'll lose 3 inches for that.
Now, there are a variety of ways you can put your tools, movable tool racks, which will come in when you need it and move out of the way when you don't need it. Those things we'll be researching those, but out of the gate, it'll probably be just a basic static tool location, because we still have to, this is a new product, so we do have to learn if we have any production errors or something like that. We do need to recover from them quickly, get customers up and running and fast. We don't want anybody having downtime. Just because it's a new product doesn't mean we want downtime.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we'll be improving it, and just like I did with the VFD, where the VFD being version 5 right now, all of last year, I did tons and tons of research improving the VFD as fast as I possibly could. where version 5 basically exposes every single inlet and outlet capability of that VFD. If I want to get more out of a VFD, I'm going to have to go to a new VFD.
Well, it's good. You're maximizing your performance out of what you have.
Yes.
So if you have an older VFD enclosure, is there a way to go through a path of upgrades to achieve the new version? Or is it, how do you go about that process?
So that we've got actually really well established, where, especially through last year as we were upgrading, you can purchase an upgrade package, which basically is the parts for that upgrade. Send us your VFD and we'll upgrade it for you for free. Or if you're adventurous enough to want to upgrade it yourself, we can provide support to make, and instructions on how to do that upgrade. But a free upgrade service. Now, because we are so proud of this version 5, and because of the advent of that braking resistor, it's a very important upgrade. We'll release some videos and examples of why it's important. But we're so proud of that braking resistor upgrade that if you buy the upgrade, send us your VFD and we will send you back the upgraded VFD and a free braking resistor. So, yeah, I believe it's a $45 value, but what you're basically losing is a little bit of downtime in how long it takes for the VFD to ship to us to do the upgrade and then ship it back to you. But you get the latest version of the VFD and you get a free braking resistor to go with it.
Sounds like a road trip.
So now with you doing the whole swap-a-roo of the VFD and whatnot, what happens to the old ones?
So the old ones actually various parts. So many of the parts I can reuse with the older versions of the VFD. Like the HDPE panels are reused. I am upgrading the joints. So those yellow bars that go across the VFD, I'm upgrading those. You can actually insert filtering material to protect it from dust. That's one of the upgrades I didn't mention earlier. But it's all based on on those joints. So you can open up the side of the enclosure, insert some filtering material, and close it back up, and then you got a nice and clean VFD. But the joints change, a couple of the side panels change, and we're adding the 2 inlets, the alarm inlet and the braking resistor inlet. And all of that. So basically we're adding some things, replacing a couple of other things like the acrylic to the aluminum. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a couple of parts that are different between the new version and any of the old versions.
Okay, so then, with the filtering and the clean VFD and all that sort of stuff, so a lot of us that use these are obviously using them with our CNCs within a couple feet, if not almost right next to our machines. And lately, I've seen, I've been perusing the Facebooks, okay? I pay attention to what's going on there. I look and see what people are saying and these sorts of things. And, you and I have had our various conversations, but there was one conversation that did sparkle interest by myself, and I did more research, and I'm just seeing what you think. There were people saying that if you don't have a minimum amount of space for your VFD, circulation isn't allowed and it'll overheat and whatever else the case may be. But the funny thing is I've had my VFD on top of a table next to my CNC this entire time. So I was wondering, do you have any words of, I guess, affirmation to say yeah, that's not the case?
Affirmations.
I can share a few things. So we have hundreds of customers. That's one thing. No one has ever complained or have burned out a VFD. Every single VFD in the field is still running. We have, I think there are 3 over here that are broken. And the reason why they're broken is because our teens have basically overscrewed it or tightened it and broke those little Phoenix connectors on it. So now we can't plug it in.
Fair enough.
Any problems usually boil down to either a setting that might be wrong or maybe the wrong input power. So these VFDs are extremely smart. You can plug a 110 VFD into a 220 outlet, it'll turn on, but the instant you try to power up a spindle, it'll go, sorry, error, and it'll display the error. It will not blow up on you. It will not explode on you. It will not damage anything. And I've done the same thing with a 220 in a 110 outlet. Every way you can mess up the wiring, I guarantee you I've done it and have never had a problem. I just fix the wiring and turn it on and it works fine. So the VFD enclosure, the other thing I would like to point out, we do have one of our competition who has a similar enclosure around the exact same VFD. And they also have no problems with overheating. I passed our designs past Alexi themselves, the VFD manufacturer. They didn't have any problems with it. So I'm not anticipating any issues from customers based on where they put their VFD.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to quell I have words for that, but just the BS, if you will, that has been circulating around certain things, because I know I'm more than satisfied with the two VFDs that I have, both of which sitting on tables. I remember rotary CNC. I'm running my 1.5 air cooled. Or no. Yeah, well, it's a 110 80 millimeter air cooled spindle, because I just don't have room for another cooler and things.
Awesome. You can find room. I do want to hit on this real quick, because if you know me, Sawdust Nation, the whole 9 yards, when I was in New Jersey, dust collection was not my best. I wasn't really that great at it. I just, it was one of those things where everything kind of populated as I progressed, and it was a afterthought. It got better, obviously, once we had Daniel on board and we started using his products and whatnot. But that thing definitely got exposed to a lot. Me blowing out the shop. It got me flattening stuff, which there's plenty of media out there that shows you the 2-3 inch of dust around my CNC. And that VFD was sitting right next to it the entire time. I've had to blow off that, and dust comes right out. I've had no reheating issues, nothing with the VFD whatsoever. And the only reason I have mounted it underneath the table now I have out in the shop is because of the space I have afforded on top of the bench. I cannot see anyone coming up with that excuse. I know for a fact I probably put that thing underneath more sawdust than pretty much anybody. So I'm just saying, that's not an issue. Actually, with that CNC, I can honestly say I've had no issues with any of Daniel's parts. I've had issues with X-Carve, and then having to mod X-Carve to make it work appropriately, which we'll talk about later. But coming from a CNC like that and using better parts to put on it, they're just looking for excuses at this point. Sorry, my 2 cents.
No, I mean, I think that's good. If you're done with that question, Daniel, I have another one ready to rapid fire.
Oh.
All right, so check it out. So water coolers, water chillers. All right, so I know there's things in the works with that, if not already been verified. So I have another part of the forum searches. I've heard stuff about how 3,000 is just fine. Or sorry, for those who don't know, the water chillers are either I want to say it's a CW 3000 or CW 5200. I personally have a 5200 for mine. But I did see some things in there just about not necessarily negative. It's more or less it's overkill. Okay. And also can possibly cause rusting with inside your spindles because of how cold it gets. It can mess with the internals of a spindle or something along those lines. Now, I know you can program temperatures on that. First question is, if you were to program it to stay room temp or close to room temp, right? Because in the winter, it's going to be 60 degrees in my shop, which I think is well within operating range for a spindle. You can program to do that. And is that okay? And then 2, how is yours looking with your kits coming out?
So yes, you can use a 5200 or a 5500. If you don't already have one, I consider it a waste of money because you're talking about $500 or so to get one of those. Those are active chillers. And yes, if you keep it at room temperature, you'll be just fine. The CW3000 it's not an active chiller, as in there's no refrigerant or anything like that. It basically pumps the coolant through tubes, which have a fan blowing through it through a radiator style design. That will definitely keep it at room temperature. So that's what we've released, because that's kind of what we recommend. If you try to cool a spindle down too far, like if you try to keep it at 30 degrees and it's 70 degrees in your shop, you might end up with condensation somewhere, and that might cause some problems. But room temperature, perfectly fine. And we're actually playing around with the idea of developing our own chiller. It'll be a micro chiller sort of thing. I'm affectionately calling it the PW100.
It's a baby.
But I don't know if that's the final name. But it's basically inspired by many of the people who've come out with computer cooling. So it'll be it's basically a micro CW3000. It's just got a computer style radiator with some fans, and then the proper circulation and a small tank to keep everything flowing.
That'd be pretty cool to have a small chiller.
Yeah, tiny little chiller. About it'll be slightly larger than the VFD enclosure, but I'm still working on it.
If you make a chiller that size, take my money. I will replace the current laser chiller I have with the one on my CNC, and I will put that on it. That would be awesome. Now, I do have a question in here in the chat about water chillers from Tim. He says, how hard do I need to work the spindle to require a water cooler or a chiller in this case?
So if you're working with hardwoods, you're probably fine. Your spindle should never get hot to the touch, like too hot to touch. If you go and reach for your spindle and it's too hot and you have to immediately pull your hand away, it's too hot. I don't have an exact temperature for what that is. I wish I did. I've never actually tried to burn up a spindle. I probably should do that. I've got a couple of.
That's a good test.
I've got a couple of return spindles with probably sand in the bearings or something. I'm still trying to. I haven't broken it apart yet, but I should go ahead and. Go ahead.
I'm sure there's quite a few. I'm sure there's a couple specific returns that can be put through some paces, just out of pure spite and nature.
I'll see if I can burn it up, and get some good information.
Do that.
Yeah, that would be a good live. Just let it run and just go to bed, go to sleep.
Take bets.
No, I wouldn't go to sleep.
Take bets. You can't take bets. But
no,
how long will this last?
Yeah, you take your manufactured enclosure that I think we're trying to develop. I've seen some stuff out there for, and then you put that spindle in there and just let it rip, and just when it fails and explodes, the enclosure will save it. You never know.
So for most people, the pond pump and the bucket work just fine. In fact, that's anybody who's got a water cooled spindle from us. If they haven't third party upgraded to a chiller, they're running a pond pump. And it works quite well. I used mine for my personal one. My first spindle ever was, I ran it for a couple of years in just the pond pump and the bucket. It was a very nice setup, nice and out of the way. I actually put it way up on a ceiling mount so that I didn't have to touch it or even look at it. But if you get hot to the touch, that's definitely a concern. You may have some fluid. You may have some circulation problems. But if you are in an environment where your spindle starts to get warm quite often, just carving hardwoods or that sort of thing. If you're getting your spindle warm often, you should look into an active chiller.
So with that, Tim, and I put in the chat there, and I know Josh just said he forgot to turn his chiller on, which I've also done. And I was like, Hey, you just no, no, it's you. It's only me and you. I'm sorry, you're getting dimed out here. Um,
Ah,
I've actually like I'll sit there and I go, why isn't my chiller on? And I'll just out of habit, I'll touch the spindle to see, and I can tell you, the spindle, if as you say, carving aggressively, we'll call it, which I don't do very often, but sometimes I like to gamble. It can get
really?
a little warm. Yeah, we won't talk about. Well, maybe we will talk about that. But in Texas are very hot places. So if you're in Arizona, Texas, like Georgia, any of those like southern states that just stay hot all the time, minus like a month, where it just barely dips below 70 and then you're back up into the hundreds. I would say active chiller all the way, only because my spindle did get hot in Texas with the pond pump, because the pond pump water bucket was almost as warm as the air. So there's that. But I can say, if you're in a cooler environment like I'm in, I will say that I actually don't use straight water, first of all, for a few various reasons. Really based on Daniel's recommendation at one point when we first started building a spindle kit from Amazon, I use a windshield wiper fluid mixture. Two reasons for that. One, if you use regular water tap, you have a very high chance of building algae, mold, and those things in your water lines. That's why I say use distilled water. Or you can use, for the reason I use this is because of temperature changes here. You can use that windshield wiper fluid that has special characteristics. So the stuff I use is -50 rated. Okay, it's because I'm freaking mine on. And for some reason, my heater doesn't go and work. Both my laser tube and my spindle both have that running through it. So that way, if it does get super cold in my garage, I don't have to worry about the water lines freezing. And then also, I don't have to worry about mold or any of that, because guess what? Mold doesn't grow in windshield wiper fluid. Sorry, it just doesn't. Which is when you said something about the computer cooling stuff. That's going to be super cool because, well, I don't think I've ever heard of a computer growing mold. So
No, that stuff is definitely not. I mean, like, and to add emphasis to that point, during one of the winters, I forget which one it was, I was in a OMTech Laser forum, and there was someone freaking out. I mean, like, because they lost power. They had no heat. They could not heat their garage, and their laser just had distilled water in it. Now they were worried about, their tube freezing and all this. And, like, it was just one of those things where, talking to Daniel, talking to Nap, I went for the windshield wiper fluid immediately. That's the first thing I put in both the spindle and both the laser. And that's what I keep in there. 100% worthwhile. If it gets cold, even if it don't get cold often, I would suggest it.
it's cheap.
Very cheap.
Oh yeah. Now
I do a gallon with me all the time.
I do want to point out that most of what we're talking about here is very, it can be perceived as very much opinion.
Sure.
But if you want more technical information, reach out to us at support@PWNCNC.com. I'm sure we can track down some exact articles that'll give you more information on it. And if you want technical details, like I will find out what temperature is required before a spindle motor gets damaged.
I'm excited for that video.
I will start a video. Yes. But yeah, the technical, if you need something technical, reach out to us. We'll help you out.
So Daniel, on your video that you're going to make, you know what I would do if I were you to really put some of the like BS to bed is I would take videos of plugging, motors into wrong power sources and those things and showing how the VFD works. Because I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people out there, including myself. I had to do a lot of research to mentally battle with folks that will say, quote unquote, troll you on certain things. And it is funny, haha, but there's people out there right now that they're just devious. I don't like it. So I read up on things, for example, with like, what was it? Like variable frequency, like spindle control, something or other. I did a lot of research on those things, and I can tell you that your spindle kits or even your VFD are going to do everything anybody needs for the hobbyist world. Unless you have like an industrial grade machine like a Shop Saber or what is it, a Phantom or any of those. Like I could see that maybe, but I don't know. That spindle cost to get, I think what you need out of it would cost the same as, let's say, a ATC spindle, I would think.
So I've seen some of the buzzwords that have been throwing around. And I'm guilty of it too. I've thrown around some buzzwords, which some people I'm sure have had to catch up and try to understand what exactly I was talking about. But I've researched every single buzzword I've seen around spindle kits. I try to stay knowledgeable on everybody's offering. I'm happy that there are other offerings available because it gives a comparison point. Because if you don't have something to compare to, you're just trusting what I say. And from someone who doesn't know me, who doesn't know anything about anything that I've contributed to the community, I'm no different than some stranger off the street, and you're taking my word for it. So it's nice that competition is out there. I will point out one of the buzzwords was the vector control. And I immediately went to our VFD manufacturer and basically said, hey, what is this? Why is it being thrown around in our market now? And he said, oh, our VFD has had that. It's not that big of a deal. We've had it for years, and everybody who has one of our spindle kits has got vector. It's called sensorless vector control. Now you can think of vector control like a stepper motor. Okay, so you got these stepper motors on your machine. They're open loop, so they don't have any feedback, right? The motor is sent some power, no feedback is sent back, so it can't compensate for any extra load. That's one of the big selling points of a Onefinity Elite. It has closed stepper loops. That's because it's got built-in sensors to know each motor has a built-in sensor that will feed that information back to the CNC controller to say, hey, it's slowing down right here. We need a little more power so that we can force through whatever hard material, maybe you're running through a knot or something like that. I asked so that means that a spindle motor has to have a sensor in order to compensate, as in a censored vector control. Now, I went to our motor manufacturer and said, hey, do you have any motors with sensors? And they said, no, they don't exist, or they are exceedingly expensive. So for hobby level, there are no motors that we've found at a reasonable price that have sensors. So our VFD handles sensorless vector control just fine. And it's already built in. Everybody's been enjoying it all this time. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to put some reference material out there. Morgan Hopp did a video a while back running this thing, I think it was 1,025 inches per minute or something crazy like
Something
that.
extreme, yeah.
And I'm going to, and a 1/4 inch depth, and I'm going to do it was plywood. Okay, plywood can be relatively soft in some aspects, but I don't care who you are. If you could run it through material like that, and I didn't even hear the spindle bog down once. I
will point out, I believe he had the 1.5 kilowatt 80 millimeter motor.
Okay.
And that's a 2 horsepower motor, but the 80 millimeter size means there's a bit more heft to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you get the smaller 65 millimeter motors, those are weaker. Hands God, they're weaker. They're smaller. There's less oomph there. So if you're choosing one of our smaller motors, which we rarely sell, honestly, but the difference is the main thing that I advise, because everybody says, well, what's the best motor out there? There isn't really a best motor. There's good ones for what you're wanting to run. So what speeds and feeds is like the holy grail. That's what you need to focus on. How fast do you want to run it? And what RPMs do you want to run it at? Speeds, how fast you run it, and feeds, how fast you push it around the machine, right? And that's where the video earlier with the 1,000 inches per minute or so, that's where that is basically attending to. He ran it at 24,000 RPMs and then ran it at 1,250 inches per minute.
Yeah.
So he ran it fast. He increased his RPMs to compensate. You can't run it at 1,250 inches per minute if you're running it at 10,000 RPMs.
Oh, no.
You have to have the right combination for the right bit, for the right material, There's so many websites out there that will help you find the right speeds and feeds. And I will point out one important thing. We're on a hobby machine, and most bits out there will give you industrial machine speeds and feeds. So it will tell you, you can run this bit at 10,000 RPMs at such and such inches per minute, but they're talking about like a $20,000 CNC machine, not our $5,000, $2,000 to $5,000 CNC machines. We need to slow things down a little bit and increase the RPMs to help adjust it.
Yes, and then also to add on to that, to give it even a little more, is Tim puts in here, speed and feed isn't the whole puzzle. Depth of cut is a huge factor, which is most definitely something that is overlooked, as he stated. I can tell you from experience using the Jenny bits from Cody over at Cadence Manufacturing, I've achieved a 1/4 inch depth cut at, I want to say it was just under 17K RPMs, going at roughly 125 to 150 inches per minute, and it's clean. So, I mean, yes, something that is definitely overlooked. I know I've overlooked it. I've accidentally had, 1250 for, an 1/8 inch depth of cut, and that sometimes don't cut it. So there is that. I do have another question for you, Danny. I'm sorry. It's they're coming to me because there are things that I've seen come out, and when people say there's problems, right? How heavy the 2.2 kilowatt motors are, and the new Mazda machine. So a lot of people, there's a big buzz going around how they just it falls because there's no power. Because people seem not to understand, when you kill a machine, you lose power to your steppers, which then in turn causes the Z or Z to drop. Is there anything in the future that may help prevent said Z droppage, or do you know of anything that's already out that's hit the markets?
So yes, there's someone I know, a good engineer, who is working on basically it's an electronic brake. So when there is power, the brake is retracted, right? And then when the power cuts off, the brake stops in and stops that Z from turning at all, and thus preventing it from dropping. There's some electronics and that sort of thing involved, wiring it into the Masso. I'm in active communications with him, trying to help where I can. It's his project, so he's been leading it. So I've been allowing him to lead it. It's a really cool project. I'm trying to find some, I'm trying to help where I can, which is a lot of things, which is finding a source for these supplies to make this product. So we are looking into it. The other thing, and it was kind of it's kind of what put me in a really good mood today, is I think I've got a viable solution. Actually, it's a workaround of a sorts. So the key thing, whenever anybody reaches over and slaps that e-stop, something's gone wrong, and they just want their machine to stop moving, just stop. Oftentimes, you can get away with just hitting the feed hold button. But the feed hold button is kind of tiny on the Masso, and we're specifically talking about the Onefinity Elites. It's that little red button that right next to the giant mushroom button, right? If you just push that, that will actually keep power to the motor. It will freeze the machine, and in some cases, I think there's a checkbox in the spindle setup where if you check that, when you hit speed hold, it will actually tell the spindle to stop, to spin down and stop. So that's a good viable alternative. With the advent of my little alarm on version 5, there is now a way that I'm researching it, to bring an e-stop to market that you plug into the spindle, and when you hit it, it triggers an error in the spindle, and then the spindle, that error output, can then go right into the Masso, and whenever you have a spindle error alarm in the Masso, it automatically triggers a feed hold. So if the VFD errors, that stops power to the motor automatically. And then the spindle will tell the VFD will tell the controller, hey, you need to stop, pause everything. It's not an e-stop, it's a feed hold. And that prevents power from being lost from the steppers, and thus the spindle won't drop.
Yeah, because I noticed that, like, Josh messaged me on the side here, like, some CNCs, they don't drop. And that's just because that's the way they're designed. Not every CNC is designed that way, you know? And I think the fact that we're able to integrate things into it to make them work that way is pretty outstanding. With integration, and I missed this question earlier, cattail. Jason asked a question when we were talking about temperatures of spindles. Is there a way to, or how easy would it be to add a temperature gauge to a spindle?
All you would have to do is an aquarium sticker that just you just stick it right on there.
Okay.
And it would measure temperature.
Something not so primitive, like a digital readout.
Fine.
I mean, however, I didn't even think of that. I'm totally going to do that.
That would be my recommendation. The simplest thing possible.
See, Tim says Z on a ball / screw shouldn't drop ever. You're right. It shouldn't, but it's the sheer weight. So I don't know if you've ever tried moving your Winfinity by hand. I have, without power on, and I can move it. It takes a little force, but I can move it.
So I've got an analogy that kind of helps. What I see it as is Winfinity designed their machine, and specifically their ball screw, for the Z, for speed. They designed it so that you can go fast with it, which basically means they have a pretty steep slope on their ball screw design. Again, we get technical later. But the ball screw, the way they've designed it, or the one they chose or whatnot, however they did it, it's designed for speed. So they want you to have the ability to go as fast as you want. If they adjusted that slope and kind of slowed you down a little bit, yes, it could handle more weight with no power. So that's, yeah.
No, I see what you're saying.
Makes sense.
Because the tighter, well, I'll call it the tighter spiral, or the less of a slope, something that's a little more perpendicular, or more parallel to, let's say, your wasteboard. We'll use that for reference. I could see how that's a little harder to move. Whereas, like you say, if it's a steeper slope, now it's like you take a marble and you're letting that marble go down that spiral, the screw, let's say, if it were to fit in there, it would go down faster than if you have that more parallel one where it's just going to do this number now.
Yeah,
So
they're leaning into the speed.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think about that. That's nice.
Yeah, I didn't put two together until he said that.
Yeah, he started talking. I was like, oh, man, I feel kind of smart now because I know what he's talking about.
Light bulb.
So I do want to point out, this is not just a Winfinity Elite problem or a Z20 problem. The Z16, I believe, it doesn't, my Winfinity with the Z16, I believe, doesn't drop.
No.
If I'm remembering right.
You're journeyman, right?
No, I have the woodworker. I don't have a lot of space.
Same.
So I do want to point out that other machines have this problem too. I put my 80 millimeter spindle with a mount that I designed onto the Shipoko 5 Pro, and it drops exactly the same way. So when the power is lost, down comes the spindle.
Yeah, that was news to me. I haven't experienced anything like that. So that's why I messaged Snap. I'm like, is my CNC not normal?
Well, and what's more interesting is the fact that these ATC spindles are heavier than the 2.2 water.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. People will notice it even more now.
Hey, listen, just a little bit of awareness, it doesn't hurt. Okay. So you can wrap up your shop more or less with new things on the forefront that you can talk about. But you talked about like logistics and stuff like that, your supplies and those things. Something I've come across, and it's very irritating, is, now mind you, love the company, okay, Uline, love the company because they're shipping products. They're honestly top notch, and I like that I can get next day shipping. However, certain things they don't store in certain warehouses, which then also drives a cost. Well, not even in certain warehouses. It's UPS or FedEx or them can't ship it, so they have to use freight. I find it a little ridiculous that I ordered they're 48 by 24 by 8 boxes, and they're for this beast over here, because it's just too big for a 36-inch box. So I want enough room so I can absorb impact if it does take a small beating. How do you get past like the shipping cost of your shipping boxes? Because I ordered 10. My shipping cost is astronomical because of what they had to do to ship it. But I don't need, 100 of those boxes. I only bought 10 because I don't make 50 shadow boxes in a month or two, So how do you get past your shipping supplies costs?
I don't know if that's a question for me because what was it? My last Uline order was about $1,500. I have 2 pallets back here that we just got today, with lots of bubble wrap, lots of boxes.
That's fair.
Now, I will point out I did get it free. Shipping was free.
Well, yeah, probably because you spent all that money.
No.
It better be free.
So every once in a while they do have free shipping options, even for the freight shipping.
Okay.
You just have to forgo their free gift.
What's the free gift?
So I didn't get the 7th box cutter this time. I just got free shipping.
Yeah, I want to call him on that because I thought it was a little ridiculous. $123 for shipping, for my shipping boxes that I spent $100 for.
Yeah, and that came from Texas. So
down the street.
Wait, don't they have pickup options?
No,
well, he's in Texas no more.
Yeah, not North Dakota.
That's right.
Yeah, so
but,
that also.
He could have.
So some things that have changed, with me moving, is that I actually have to pay a little more for certain things because getting it here is kind of a pain in the rear. Mind you, the customer is going to get this shadow box and it's going to be in pristine condition, I hope. And because I put it in an appropriate box, I didn't try to Frankenstein a box together. So there was that.
Yeah,
to have them do it.
Speaking of, the shipping companies occasionally will do one heck of a number on our spindle boxes. Our spindle boxes will ship out. They look beautiful with our branded taping and all that stuff. And the customer will get it, and there'll be like several pieces broken inside. And it's like, what happened to that box? Why did they drop it so many times? They must have.
They've Ace Ventura'd that thing. If you've seen the very beginning of Pet Detective, and he's like literally kicking his box and playing football with it and all the things, that's what they did.
It's football season.
I share the photos with my wife, and now we're going through bubble wrap like crazy. She never wants to see those pictures, like ever. And I never want to see them either. Don't get me wrong.
Either.
But she is using so much bubble wrap in these boxes now.
Okay, Franken boxes do ship cheaper, but I can tell you how I have to Franken box these. If it falls apart, like if that box,
it's not worth it.
If that box gives it all, I just lost $500 for something.
Yep.
Which is not even that much because that's that covers materials, my shipping most of the time. I actually started charging shipping now because shipping is not cheap. But yeah, and then with the occasional tip, which I did get a tip for this one, I was pretty happy about that.
Nice. Well, you should. It looks really nice. I definitely like the new felt you're using.
The crushed navy blue.
I'll say it again. Like I don't know about here. God forbid. I hope it's the same. But when I bring it to UPS and they package it for me, I've had no issues. And the customer does pay the shipping price, and I don't charge them until after I ship it. And I explained to them up front, I'm like, look, shipping's going to be more. I have them ship it. So if there's any problem, you're not talking to me, you're talking to the company. They owe you the money. They insure it because they packaged it. Because that's how they get you. We've all gone through this at this point. And the stress, I don't have to buy shipping stuff for the big stuff. Like, I don't have to worry about that. For me, it's worth it.
If I could have the customer pay for it like that, because don't get me wrong, they pay a flat rate because I've equated out how much it costs for me to package it, the tape, box, bubble wrap, all those things. And then whatever this postage is, most postage for me is roughly $15 to $20. So add a little more money now for the box and the table and the other things, and that's what their shipping cost is.
Yeah, I mean, on average, when I was in Jersey, like it was between $40 to $50 for shipping, and that's in packaging, that's everything, and that's usually normal speed for shipping. I always say $100 as an estimate, and never comes out to $100.
No.
But expectations, what I'm saying? Like I always tell them, hey, it could be up to $100. If it's more, I'll probably cover it if it's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, expect this much. You'll get an invoice with exactly a picture of the receipt, the whole 9 yards. I am not making money off you shipping. I just want the money back. That's it.
Yeah. And we're over here talking about our small shipping costs. Daniel's like, I can only imagine what your shipping bill is.
Whenever we start shipping to, whenever we have a Romanian shipment or a Germany shipment, those can be pretty hefty in the shipping price, for sure.
I bet.
And if there's anything wrong with it, when you get it, we cover that. We ship you out a replacement parts or whatnot, or swap it out at no cost to the customer. So we make sure that they're taken care of. They have a nice product when they receive it.
Nice.
So,
well, I mean, speaking from experience, I don't think I haven't ever received anything that's been jacked up. And even if I had something happen, you've always seemed to be very helpful when things have gone wrong. So I've got no complaints. Never have in the past, what 4 years now? It's got to be 5 years now. We've talked on off between Workbench Con, beginning of this, doing that, and all these other things. Long relationship, and we pick up a conversation like it's nothing. So, I mean, I'm more than appreciative for you.
Over the years, I've learned several things, and there are a couple of things couple of mottos that I follow to a T. Number one is do the right thing. So that if there's a problem, do the right thing. Make sure you're able to sleep at night. Make sure you're making the right choices. When you have new information arrive, and it makes you rethink something you did in the past, well, do the right thing. Put in the work, figure it out, and do the right thing. The other thing is unstoppable. So whenever I come into a problem, I solve it. It may take me a little longer, but I'm unstoppable in trying to solve the problem.
That's a fact.
And of course, there's always the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I don't denigrate people. I don't talk down to them. I don't put their stuff down because I don't know where they're coming from, right? They may have different situation in their life. They may have had a bad day. They may have had whatever it is. I don't know. So I can't make assumptions on them. So I try to treat everybody with respect, treat everybody nicely. And yeah, words to live by.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this before, so is Nap. We talk about, why we enjoy having you as a sponsor, the relationship that we have with you and your company, and having you on, and then just, being able to have these conversations with you is the morals that you carry, not only in your business, but your everything. It shows. I mean, you could talk to anyone that has ever dealt with PWNCNC in any instance, and 99.9% of those are going to tell you a great story because that's how you represent yourself in the company. So,
well, we also go ahead. Well, we also try to do a little bit more than that too. Is if I mentioned the 65 millimeter spindles, sometimes that's what they want. That's what the customer wants to go with. They want to go with the smaller spindle so they don't have as much weight problem and that sort of thing. And if you end up getting it and you don't like it, we do have that return policy. You can return it. Mm-hmm. We've also helped many people don't want to return it. They just want the better option. So they might want to switch over to the 80 millimeter 1.5 instead of the 65 millimeter. And we help them out with that. We tell them exactly what parts to send back, and we will send them the correct parts for the bigger motor, and then they can enjoy what they want. And that's even after a couple of carves. If they run into a problem, reach back out. We will help you.
That's another great point, and I don't keep meaning to add on to it, but like you have options. It's not black and white, it's yellow and black. There's options there.
I like that. That's good.
I'm not going to tell you how to run your hobby. I'm going to give you options to play with.
Exactly. You just allow us to dominate it. That's all.
Yeah,
exactly.
Something like that. Yeah, I see what we did. That was a good play on words. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
But hey, we're getting ready we're bumping over this hour here, guys. Daniel, any last shots as far as what's going on? Any upcoming things that you want to shout out for people to just be kind of on a lookout for before we wrap up with final words?
So this past weekend, I put together a carving video, a full ATC carving video. I've got one tool change in there. I'll try to make my carves a little more complicated to have a couple of tool changes. But there's one tool change in there, and we're going to basically share a lot more information over the next few weeks and 2 months leading up to Black Friday is our goal. We're trying to make sure that we get this ready and releasable by Black Friday. So we're going to be releasing a lot more information over these few months leading up to it. So stay tuned for videos and more information.
Awesome. And as he releases those, we'll be sharing those on the Sawdust Nation podcast Instagram, so you all can see. If you didn't see just recently here, there's the little teaser video that we've linked in our Instagram as well that you guys can all go see of the ATC in operation. I know these guys over there in his team. Now, mind you, we're a part of the team too, but we're not full into the team yet because guess what? We're not near Daniel. We do the best we can, but his team that is there with him physically at all times, they're doing a wonderful job and just making things happen over there with the spindle kits and us and making our hobbies better and more enjoyable and not having to obsessively stare at the CNC, even though it's fun.
You do it anyway.
Yeah, for real. And then when this ATC hits my machine, I'm going to be like, look at it go.
You might as well just get a chair, you sit in front and watch it go.
For real.
I've triggered that tool change so many times, just staring at it 2 dozen times.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
But all right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this thing with final words. So, Daniel, we'll start with you with final words for our listeners.
Well, don't just own your CNC, dominate it.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, I know you're going to take this one out, so I'll go ahead and give my final words real quick. So Daniel gave a couple mottos today, and I think it's something that we've stood by as, he's sponsored us, but even well before Daniel, and that's, treat others as you'd want to be treated. Being unstoppable is definitely a thing, especially when you're dominating the hobbyist CNC spindle arena at this time. And then just always doing the right thing, which I think is awesome. I will tell you that he's got some competitions, patrols out there, but so do we all. All of us in the woodworking and the making community, we have those things. What I will tell you is never wish bad upon them, because we know Daniel doesn't wish bad upon his competition, as I don't either. I want them to succeed. I want them to do very well in what they're doing. It's just there's better ways to do things, and I think maybe if they took a few pointers, they might be happier with themselves as they move on with their goals and maybe dreams. And I suggest you all do the same. Definitely treat others the right way, and I think it'll pay dividends for you in the future. But yes, keep doing that. Keep making the community stronger. And Josh, take out the episode.
So I'll give my 2 cents here, but I would like Daniel to actually take us out this afternoon if you're up for it, man. But as always, get in your shop, go make some sawdust, and find that motivation to get yourself in there. Recently, I had some trouble with that, and but this last weekend I was able to get in there, make some progress, and guess what? I'm back making, and it feels good. Sometimes you just got to get a little reminder. And with that, Daniel, can you please take us out?
Well, do the right thing, be unstoppable, be kind to your neighbors, and above all else, make something cool today or tomorrow or this weekend.
Or whenever, yeah.
Yeah. And that's Sawdust Nation Podcast out.
Bye.